Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to show you how my husband and I made the prop stick for my kayak. I plan on crabbing and using this for trotlining, and every kayak is different, but I will give you the measurements that I used, and you'll have to check the angles and measurements for yourself. But basically, we took and put everything together as a dry fit first, and then we started taking it apart one by one so that the angles all stayed the same. However, before we took it apart, I actually drew a line connecting from one piece to the next so that we made sure we put it back on the exact angle when we put it together. Now here you'll just see us taking this apart, and my husband is using the PVC cleaner to clean the PVC. Then we'll add the PVC glue where the PVC cleaner was, and then we'll connect it all together. Okay, when taking them apart, make sure you're not doing no more than one or two pieces at a time, because you'll get confused as to which end went where and how it is. Because like when I was measuring and stuff like that, my husband was like, okay, so what end was that? Because, you know, he had like handed it to me and we flipped it and everything. So just measure everything before you put it together. That way you know that you have it. And then you can always use alcohol to remove the ink if you need to, or acetone. Right, so anyway, we lined up everything. Everything worked out great. We did have to test fit it once before we glued it at one point because of him handing it to me and me handing it back to him wrong. But for the most part, everything went smoothly and it fit perfectly. And it had a really nice tight fit. Now, I will say the elbow part, that is pretty easy to do. You're basically just using, you know, 3 small pieces and 2, 45-degree angles to make that. And then once you get past that elbow, you're going to come back up and you're going to make another turn using a 45. And then that's when all of your parts are going to be changed in measurement compared to mine. Because your length of your kayak may not be 36 inches wide, which means you have a smaller, or larger width of your kayak. So that's the part you're going to have to adjust. Also, the legs that go down into your fishing pole holes, those you'll have to adjust. Now, if you don't have fishing pole holes already in your kayak, then I have seen some videos where people have actually put the prop stick without legs like I'm doing, and then they've attached them to their seat. I didn't do that because I was lucky enough that my old town has fishing pole holes. So we just made it fit those. And it has so many of them that it works out great. Now, as you can see, we're just steady going along, measuring, and I'm throwing the measurements up on the screen as to what I used. Again, you also need to measure the height from your water line on your kayak to the bottom of the prop stick. And everybody that I've talked to and research that I've done, they're having the prop stick, which is the part where the rope will ride up over it, 6 to 8 inches above the water line. So when you're putting everything together, make sure you account for that. As you can see, the left side of in this video, it would be the right. The right side's much shorter than the left. And a lot of the prop sticks actually have a longer side on the one, and, it's pretty close to being even on the other. Now, I will tell you at this point, my husband glued that together and didn't lay it flat before it dried, so my arm is slightly crooked. And he tried to fix it, but that glue holds pretty, tight pretty fast. So that arm is going to be a little crooked, but you can't see it on the kayak. Right, so I'm measuring this, I'm going through and doing that. Now he's, working on the other part, and then we're going to go through and, he's still worried about that being crooked, but don't worry about it. It's done, it's over with, let's move on. And, we went ahead and put the cross piece on and everything, and then we did the legs, which you'll be able to see us here doing that. All right, now at this point, we have the entire prop stick on the left with the U shape completely formed, and there's 2 45s going on the bottom, and then 1 45 going the opposite direction into what we're going to start forming as the arm that goes across with the legs. Right, so there is a short piece, and then there is a T that comes out. That T is going to be your leg. So you need to, what's the start of your leg. You need to make sure you're aware of that. That little piece there is 4 inches. Also, you may not need the little tiny piece depending on how you're doing yours, because you can rotate that T to just go directly into your fishing pole holes. But because I wanted mine closer to me as opposed to being further back into my bed, then we added this and we brought it forward using some 90-degree angles and stuff. So at this point, this is when we started doing that. Now you can just take your T at this point and just put it straight into your fishing pole holes and you'll be fine. But like I said, I'm like 5'1", so any further back, it's further I've got to stretch. So bringing it forward for me made it easier. And just remember, you have to adjust your height for whatever you're going to bring it back down. So for me, mine went up originally and then it came back down because of how we did this little section here. See how it's angled up? And then we're going to put the angle to go back down into the hole with a 45 right here, which worked out perfect in my opinion for what I'm going to need and how I'm going to utilize this. Now, I did also paint this, and there'll be a part 2 showing you how I did the painting technique that you see on the cover image and at the last image of this. But, we just continue to measure the pieces and then build them as, you see here. And the reason I made this video is because I couldn't find anyone actually putting one of these together. So I just kind of recorded us putting it together, and hopefully it gives you an idea of how to do yours. But keep in mind, every kayak is different. We built ours for the Old Town PDL 120. Now, this will be for myself. My husband doesn't crab. He likes to fish. And, just make sure that when you're putting all of these together, that you're pushing your PVC pieces in all the way, because if you don't push them in, then they're not going to fit when you put it into your kayak. Whether it's a Old Town or another one, it's completely different. But as you can see here, I have a 45 and then I have that 90-degree angle that's making my angle going down into the actual legs of the kayak for the fishing pole holes. All right. And then, you have the legs, which those you'll have to adjust to the height that you need it to be based on your water line. My water line is pretty high on the Old Town, so my legs didn't have to be that long. I may need 12 inches where you may need 14 inches, or you may need 8 inches. It just depends on where your water line is. So that also is based on how much weight you have in your kayak. So whatever you're going to have in your kayak at the time that you're going out, then make sure that you get a good idea or mark your water line yourself. So if you're going to always have 50 extra pounds in your kayak as opposed to 20 extra pounds in your kayak, then that's going to adjust your water line. So you're going to need to accommodate for that with the water line with your prop stick, because that prop stick is going to sit the same time or same height every single time you put it in there. So you just need to accommodate that, and you can give yourself some room for extra weight or less weight if you need to. But you're going to have to play trial and error on this as well. And then on my opposite side, I actually left a piece open with a cap on it in case I wanted to add on or switch things up or do something different. I didn't glue the very, very end. Now, the center piece that we're doing here, mine is 27 inches. This is the part where I said yours is going to be different completely. Like, there's no change in that unless you're doing the PDL that I have for the Old Town. This will be changed on every single kayak because they are all completely different in width. Mine is pretty wide, so that's why my center is 27 inches. Now, your kayak may only be 24 inches wide or 30 inches wide, which is going to change that center piece there. Now, for the rest of it, you can see how I did the arm there. We're going to continue that same exact process for the opposite side. Now, the difference is here is once you put this on, you need to go fit this before you glue the leg in place. So he's putting the T on right now, and then once he gets that done and he gets everything cleaned up and everything, we're going to go test fit it one more time to make sure those angles work, because you need both your legs to be exactly the same angle to fit into your fishing pole holes. You don't want that to get messed up, because otherwise it's not going to work and you'll have to start over or add pieces to separate it and everything. Okay, so for the next part, I'm just going to kind of go through pretty quickly because we're just pretty much repeating the process. Then I'll show you how I fit it in the kayak. Also, at the very, very end, I'm going to put pictures of the actual pieces with the measurements on them, so stay past the logo. Okay, so now that this is finished up, here's how we fit it in the kayak. It fits pretty snug. On that left side, we're going to end up putting a cap so that we can always just add on if we need to. This is when it's painted after we've come back and everything, so that you can see what it looks like sitting in there painted. I will show you part 2 how I paint it and how I got that multicolor combination that matched the kayak. The kayak is green with orange highlights, and it has a dark gray / deep gray, almost black, into the old town. Right, so check out part 2, and I hope you enjoyed this, and hopefully you can get out and crab as well, and hopefully this tutorial will give you sort of an idea of how to do your own. All right, thanks for watching. Have a wonderfully blessed day. For this piece, you're going to determine the size by your water line.